Hi John, apologies for the delay on the screencast, just a lot of things popped up. I'm going to talk about the contribution I've made towards the CA2 for implementing TCP into our game k-Arnage. Michael has done a lot of work. He done most of the porting of the game, so he ported the initial game onto TCP server. Initially, one of the commits I did was to delete the local player identifiers, the second local player from the game, but then Michael did create a new branch, and then we just branched off that, ended up being on master. So the very first thing I've done once Michael has completed his initial porting of the game was that we had a problem that Michael had to use a global TCP socket for multiplayer game state. I'm pretty sure that's what he said he did. A sec, I'll just quickly find the CPP for this state. No, it was lobby state. So we have a lobby state. Here is where all the players join, and then once host press is ready, the game starts. So at the start, Michael had initially an SF socket initialized globally across a lot of states. And one of the things I mentioned to him was I said that we can use this in context, since I've noticed that in state, just need state. In state, you have used a context to define like window, textures, fonts. So I was like, why not add the socket and the local ID into it? And this is exactly what I did. So once I added that in, once I added the socket into the context, I also added the local ID into the context. And then once the context was populated with them, I went to lobby state, and here we can see we created a member variable called msocket, and here we use msocket to socket to do different. I think it's in multiplayer state. Just one sec. Current document. No, there we go. So there we go. Now we can use packet handler, and then we can send straight to the socket of the player. Straight from the socket of the player, sorry. We also had a bug where basically whenever you'd join the lobby state and then you'd return out of the lobby state and you try to join again, it would say that could not find host. The problem was that Michael's code here for connection, so in our connect to server, which is defined, so if it's host, we get the local address and then we create a game server. If it's not a host, we just get the address from the file and nothing else. We don't create a game server. So the game server is created in lobby state, which means that we cannot clear the lobby state because it will clear the game server as well. So initially and technically, game server sits on top of the lobby state. So once the problem was here that status, you're supposed to pull TCP socket done, and the fact that we didn't have it to set blocking, it would just go and pull it out asynchronously. So what I did was I set it blocking to true, just in this case, so it would ensure that all the players are connected. Once all the players are connected, then the bug was resolved when the fact that the msocket could destroy itself since it was not trying to connect to the server. And that was one of the bugs I've worked on fixing, and it was fixed. Then I added integrate context items to multiplayer state. Yeah, so in multiplayer state, if we check mcontext, msocket. Here I just reused msocket so we could do different things like creating a player with a socket. Oh yeah, player also has a socket. That's one thing I forgot to mention. It's somewhere there. So a player has a reference to the TCP socket. Continuing on, so we used msocket everywhere. Basically, this compacted our code a little bit more, and it allowed us to follow the structure that you have defined for this game. I was really lenient, well, not lenient, I was really kind of focused on trying to get the code to work in the code base that we were given, not trying to hotfix anything, like randomly creating code that doesn't relate to the code to the overall structure of the code that we have written, or you have written. So once msocket was integrated into multiplayer state, a lot of issues were resolved from Michael's side. Yeah, so one of the things was to mention that the socket could not... So I found a bug where the socket was not destructing, and that was in the lobby state, where I just mentioned a second ago, where I had to set it to blocking and unblock it after everything is done. Another thing, I added Xbox 360 controller support. So in key bindings, we can see that it's, one sec, should be assign key, no, check action, check release action, check key binding. There, if joystick is connected, and then we do all the bindings. So is button press, this 0 is the identifier of the controller. Since there's only one player playing the game on a single computer, you can straight away assume that any controller connected up to the computer will be at ID 0 because there's only one connected controller. So the ID increments every time you connect a new controller. So for the likes of our previous CA, I had to consider the fact that the local identifier of the player would dictate which controller is being used and controlled. So I added this, basically reused the code from last. I turned off the rotation because Michael has disabled the rotation. This actually caused quite a few bugs, which I'll discuss in a minute. I just want to get the main bits over and done with. Continuing on, I've made a spectate state. So in multiplayer state, one sec, spectate state, there, state spectate. So one of the things that Michael has really wanted to add, well, it was mostly both of us, but Michael mentioned it first, and I thought it was quite a cool idea, was that instead of the player going back to the main menu after you die, you'd be in some kind of spectator mode, and where you could spectate the players. So the initial idea was to have a state, like a pause state, and you could click next player to center on the players, but since I was too bogged down in other bugs, I just added a state. It stays in one place, and I think the buttons are broke. I'll talk about this just now. So the problem is, actually start the game, I'll show you the problem. Yeah, I'll have to start 2 instances, so just one sec. So there's a problem where the update let updates true. So if we let the networking updates true, that means we're actually handling the inputs as well, and the inputs are messing up with the GUI. Since I'll show you now, it's basically if I disable this, if I make it false so it doesn't propagate updates true, I will be able to select go back to menu or next player. Otherwise, it just doesn't let me do that. So one sec. Debug, start new instance. I'll just show you this now. So host, join, ready. So right now, if I kill, now you can see spectating player Joe. This is placeholder text. This, and see now I can't press up and down, but I can press the button, which is it's not odd. I understand where it's coming from since the updates are propagating. Also in spectate state, it's kind of laggy, but actually kind of updates pretty nicely. But I'm pretty sure you have to have the game on. Also, yeah, the rotation is quite off, so yeah. Anyway, that's something I'll talk about in a sec. So now you can see here, we're stuck in this kind of mode where I can't actually press anything. But when turn that off. But then when it comes to false, the network updates won't go through. This is not good because then we won't be able to spectate. The game will be like stuck, like in pause mode. But actually allows me to press the buttons. So that's the bug that I've stumbled. I could fix it if I had more time. I focus on other things. So we had another bug where the host could control both players. One sec, I'll just quickly go to GitHub. It's I don't specifically remember where it was, but I can find the commit for it. There, commits, and it was host. One sec. Iterate lobby. Try and vote. Yeah. So in this case, we had it set to where. Oh, this is not it. Set character based on local identifiers. Fix merge, spectate, fix bug. There. So fix bug. So the host could control both players, which was an issue just in the character identifier, to be honest. So I just in game state. Oh, this is actually for a single player. This is weird. I don't quite remember what I did, but I remember that I've just changed one value and everything got fixed. I was stuck in this problem for at least a day, and then I just randomly fixed itself. So something to do with the identifiers. So send rotation across networks. So in our network multiplayer game state, or no, it's in our game server rotate. So here I send the current rotation. So this is position update. So so this is sending position updates. So we have character identifier, position X, Y, rotation, hit points, and missile ammo. The reason why I added rotation, since we are since anyone that is not local, we don't really have to listen to their inputs. We just really have to. We don't have to like adjust the player based on the inputs and the velocity they're running at. We just can specifically set like the current XY location and the rotation, which means they'll be closely correlated to that. Interpolation. No, that's not here. So for interpolated position, oh, I've missed this. Okay, I found the problem why my interpolations were a bit weird. I just didn't change this, but I changed the second interpolation, which is here. So my interpolated position was that I got the world position, got character, so the one you did in 0.1. I tried different values, but 0.1 seemed to work very nicely. And for interpolated rotation, I didn't actually increment it. I just, I didn't like use a percentage of it to, over time to interpolate it. It just kind of goes and gets the current rotation and the delta and just adds it on as an offset. Also for a set character position, since our X axis is just basically our rotation axis, since the way our movement works, and character, it will be an entity, character, move. Okay, no, it's not move, it's rotate. There, rotate. So if you can see here, we have a crazy maths function in there, just for us to set our velocity so we can move in the direction we're looking at. And the fact that we use X to rotate, basically, in game server, in multiplayer game state, I just made sure that the position, this rotation, since this is rotation, I don't want to touch it. I just want to get the Y value, and the interpolated rotation will set the actual rotation of the character, and this, I try to sync this up as much as possible, and it still breaks, but sure, it works. Also, I added a display, so it displays a badge saying just the word U above the player that is currently local. So if you are the current player on the screen, it'll show a little U above your character. Since I have 30 seconds left, I won't turn on my game, but you'll be able to return back to the point of the video where I show the game, and it just says U above the player that you're playing with. The fact I didn't add colors is just I couldn't create. I couldn't just come up with something really quickly on the go to set the colors because we have animations.